Hey, welcome to Project Addiction. The air compressor used to be an absolute staple in any automotive shop, but with the advent of better and better batteries and better cordless power tools, the air compressor is starting to lose a little bit of its usefulness, at least in some cases. But that doesn't mean it's not a great tool to still have in your shop, especially when you can get them on Marketplace and Craigslist for dirt cheap, or like in the case of this one, completely free. Now the reason that these things come up for free quite often is because they've stopped working. But just because it's not working doesn't mean it's not worth trying to fix anyways. So this particular compressor turns on, runs, sounds like it's compressing air, but doesn't really matter how long you leave it running, it'll never get up past 20 to 25 PSI. So obviously, we've got something going on with it. Now, I don't know a whole heck of a lot about compressors, but I have a pretty rudimentary idea of how they at least function. So what I suspect is going on with this particular unit is I think we probably have a bad reed valve. And what the reed valve does is it controls the flow of air. As the piston goes down, it draws air in through the intake here, into the cylinder, the valve closes, the piston comes back up, and pushes air down into the tank. If the reed valve fails, what can end up happening is the piston goes down, draws air in, comes back up, and pushes that air right back out the intake again. And that's what's going on with this one. If you put your hand by the intake, you can feel air being sucked in, and you can feel it buffeting back against your hand again. So we're gonna take this apart and take a look, see if maybe that's what's going on with it, and then we're gonna see if we can build a new reed valve, because I don't know where you can buy parts from one of these compressors. I didn't find exactly what I was expecting to find. This is the reed valve I thought was bad, and as you can see, it's actually in perfectly good condition. So I'm not even going to check the second reed valve. This is the one that controls the airflow to the tank, because I can see through these three holes that it's in place and there's nothing missing. If I put a screwdriver through there and just gently push on it, it springs back, no problem. When I pulled it off, and unfortunately I didn't get a good shot of it, the valve wasn't actually sitting flat against the head. It was lifted off a little bit, held out by sawdust, dirt, and grime. So I've cleaned that off now, and as you can see, when I place it back on the head, it's now sitting nice and flat. So I'm just gonna finish cleaning everything up, reassemble it, and we're gonna test it out as is. Alright, so we definitely have an improvement now. When I put my hand by the intake, you can feel the suction, but it doesn't seem to be trying to blow it back away. And we were able to get up to 40 PSI pretty quickly. Unfortunately, it sits at 40 PSI and won't go past there. What I suspect is happening is our cold start valve is actually leaking too much air past. Now all compressors have either a cold start valve or an unloader valve, or they have both. So the job of the unloader valve or the cold start valve is basically the same, and that's to relieve any air pressure left in the line between the pump and the tank after the compressor shuts off. By relieving all that air, it means that when the compressor tries to restart again, it's not trying to fight through a whole bunch of air pressure. It's got a nice clear line to actually get going and get started before building up that pressure. The cold start valve is designed to leak pretty much all the time when the compressor is running, but if it's leaking too much air, that means that most of the air is coming out the valve and not down into the tank. So I'm going to try and take this one apart, see if we can see inside, and maybe we can fix it, but chances are I'm guessing it's probably going to have to be replaced. Alright, so here's what the valve looks like, and you can see, if we push down on the inside here, the valve opens up and allows air to escape out the top. it looks like this little pin comes through, and I'm guessing that either the hole is completely worn or the pin has worn down, and it's now allowing just too much air to go past here. So I can buy a new one of these, but we're trying to do this on the cheap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the vise, and I'm going to try and compress it to see if I can actually make the outer diameter of that pin a little bit larger and limit the amount of air that can come out the hole while the compressor's running. Well, unfortunately, that didn't work quite as I'd hoped. This should be one piece, and it broke off trying to remove it. However, I think we might still be able to make this work. Now, the problem was when the valve opened up, it was letting too much air out this side, and we do have a ridge in here. So what I think we're going to try and do is we're going to try and make an O-ring to sit on the inside here. So when this valve is forced opened, it pushes against the O-ring, limits the amount of air coming out here, and then when the compressor stops, this will close down a little bit and it'll let the rest of the air flow out past the valve. At least in my head this works. We'll see if it works in practice. I don't have an O-ring of the right size, so what I'm going to try to do is, I've got a little piece of vacuum line here. I'm going to try and cut this as square as possible, and we'll use this as an O-ring. That is not square. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Let's try with this maybe. Okay, that's not gonna work either. Maybe a pair of scissors? Well, is this actually gonna work? I don't know, it's a long shot, but we're gonna give it a go. Okay, so it looks like that solved the problem with the compressor not building any air. We hit 120 PSI, the compressor shut off like it's supposed to, but because we've messed around with that valve, the big question is going to be, will the compressor restart again? So I'm gonna let a little bit of air out of the compressor, and we're gonna see if it kicks over or if the motor just freezes up. There we go. With a little bit of effort and no money whatsoever, we have a perfectly good working compressor. So just because somebody thinks something is junk doesn't necessarily mean it is. So if you're just starting out and you're looking to get a set of air tools to help you out in the shop, but you're unable to go out and buy a compressor, don't be afraid to go and grab a broken one for free or dirt cheap and dig into it to see if you can fix it. A lot of the time it's really just something simple and people just don't want to put out the effort to try and fix them, so they just throw it away and buy a new one. Which means if you're willing to put in that little bit of effort, you can have yourself a compressor for next to nothing. Even if I wasn't able to BS that valve back into working condition, they only cost about $5 to $10 on Amazon or at your local hardware store, so it could have been fixed really cheaply even if I couldn't fix the valve. But anyways, this compressor is pretty much done. All I need to do with it is add a new plug because we're missing the ground and you don't want to run your equipment without a ground. And I need to 3D print a new wheel because this one's broken. Once that's done, I'll have a great little spare compressor to roll around the shop or throw in the back of the truck if I need to take it somewhere. Anyways, that's it for today. If you liked today's video, hit that like and subscribe. Otherwise, get out in the shop and fix something. We'll see you next time.